Hello and welcome to another Game Nexus arcade video. Today we're going to take a closer look at how all the stuff for Tekken 5 Dark Resurrection is all hooked up. As you can see here, this is the standard Namco System 256 unit that I usually use. You'll see the TED2 version A dongle's already in here, and I can assure you that the TED1 DVD-B, I think it's called, is already in the DVD drive. The one thing I want to show you, as opposed to my what I originally had in this board, is one special thing here when you take the cover off. Now, normally if you have a Namco System 256, there's nothing here. This is what's called the EX card board. This actually is how the card readers interface with the Namco System 256. Now, one note I want to make here is if you have this board installed and you don't have the card readers hooked up and powered up, the Namco System 256 and the software will not load properly. I know with this game in particular, Tekken 5 Dark Resurrection, what happens is your dongle will beep like it normally, your board will beep like it normally should do, so it'll do the beep 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 thing, but nothing else will happen. It'll seem like it's trying to boot, but it won't. Now you'll notice there are 3 connections on here. The only 2 we're going to worry about are the 2 on the bottom. I can honestly tell you, I don't know what the top one's for. Now what we have here, this is your standard, I don't know if you can see this too well, but we're going to take a quick look here. This is your standard JAMA B PCB that also works with Namco System 256. This I'm only using to power the system, and so the system thinks there's an I/O board connected. So what I do with this is, this is the cable for the, this is the actual ribbon cable. This connects this particular board to either Namco System 246 or 256. So we connect this side of the connector to the ribbon cable slot, and then we connect the other side of this to the side of the Namco System 256, and then that's all done. Now what I have here is a piece of the harness that actually came with the Namco System 256. When I say a piece, I basically took every wire off of this that I do not need, because there was actually just quite a few wires, and it just made this whole wiring harness a bit too big and bulky. Now the thing I want to show you that's important here, this is a standard 9-pin arcade power supply connection, and you'll see this guy here. This is very important. Let me see, make sure I'm actually in frame here. This is very important. This lets it connect up with the card readers, but I'll show you that in just a moment here. So all I gotta do here is connect this side to the JAMA, and then I just usually will take this, since I actually need to use this, I'll put it aside and take all the other wires, since I'm actually not using them at all, and what I usually do is just throw them over the edge of this, since none of these are power wires, and they kind of counterbalance this having to hang down. And then we just take standard arcade power supply. This is actually the Twisted Quarter 200 watt power supply that I bought for Gauntlet Legends. And then I just take either of the 9-pin connectors and just plug them into the 9-pin from the Namco harness here, as you can see. And then you take this guy here, which is the Namco System 256/246 power lead. It just gives you your 6-pin to your 6-pin. You plug one end to the front of the unit here. I don't know if I'm in frame. Yeah, I'm in frame. Good. That just snaps here. And this doesn't matter what side goes on what side, because it's the exact same on both. And then you take the other end and you plug it into the I/O board here. So what this actually does is it actually powers the system, because what's happening here is your 512 and ground off of your JAMA edge are now basically getting converted directly into the front of the 256. Now, let me see, next thing I'll do is I'll just briefly talk about a cable I had previously shown in another video. Now this here, I don't know how well you can see this. This is the adapter cable, which was in a lot of Namco Tekken 5 cabinets, that allows you to plug the PS2 controllers in. So actually fans could bring their PS2 controllers and hook them to their Tekken 5 game and play with their favorite controller. So this is actually rather long bunch of wires here, and this lets you connect the controllers. So what you do here is you'll see over here under the power wire here, there is a white connector on the board right under the DVD drive, and we just take the white connector from the edge of this connector, plug that into the Namco System 256 board, and then get all the way to the end here and get our connections here. Now the one with the extra little thing here is player 2. The one without that is player 1. So typically what I do is I'll get the controller I want to use, which is a standard PS2 controller, get the player 1 lead here, and now the only stipulation here is, unlike the actual connection for like let's say Naomi that lets you use the Dreamcast controller, you can't use analog and you don't get any rumble from this. But hey, it lets you use a controller when you normally wouldn't. So then you just take your controller, plug it in. What I like to do is maybe take a little of the cable, just throw it over the edge here, because I just don't want these cables getting pulled. Because I know sometimes, I don't know if it's just my setup, but if the cables kind of get pulled too much, the controllers, like the little lights in them, turn off, and then they just don't work. And then typically what I'll do, since a lot of times I have to more or less force level up my characters by facing a like non-combative opponent, I'll take the player 2 controller, get basically any controller. What I actually have on hand right now is a standard DualShock analog controller from the original PlayStation, and then just plug that into the player 2 controller port. Of course, if I was playing with anyone else, I would get another DualShock 2, or whatever the whatever controller said person wanted to use, because the last thing I would want to do is have a friend say it's unfair because I got the good controller. I could remember that when I was young. It'd always be, oh well, you got the good controller. I got the crappy controller. Now the other than the card readers, which I'll show you in just a moment, the only other thing is, since I'm using this on a PC monitor, you just take your VGA connection from your PC monitor, plug it onto either of the VGA connectors. It doesn't matter if it's right or left, and then just screw the things on so they stay on. Now, if you were using a 15 kilohertz monitor, what you would do is you would take a VGA cable, plug it into here, and then plug it into the VGA connection on your I/O board here, and then you would just run the monitor cables from the JAMA harness to your arcade monitor, and you'd have your 15 kilohertz signal, like your as they call it, standard resolution, and you'd have to switch one of the switches on the jumper switches there, so it would actually take it out of 31 kilohertz mode, which is 640 by 480, which is what I use because I use it on a PC monitor. And then, of course, the only other thing you want to worry about here is audio, which I just plug this into my right and left audio, and this goes into a stereo 3.5 millimeter stereo mini plug, and then these, of course, just go in here. Nothing special about that, but I figured I'd just include it just so I wouldn't get any extra questions about that. Now, our next thing we're going to show you is the card readers. This is one of the biggest things, for me at least, that was really a mystery when it came to this whole setup. So let me see here. We got both of our card readers here. And now, this is your standard card reader. This is actually a Sega card reader. It is an HW210. And all of this cabling that's on it here, you'll see all this harness here, this all came already on it. So you'll see this leads to like a big connector here, big JSTNH. Then that goes into here, which this is, as you can see, I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing this is power because you'll see a red and a black cable coming from it. And then the other end goes into here, which is actually the data connection, I'm guessing. I don't know for sure, but I know this is just how this works. And as I said, this just kind of came on here, so I didn't have to do any of that. Now, the next important part is these little guys here. This is what is called an S-Conv board, or S-Convert board. You'll see it has a Namco thing on here. And that's another reason I want to do this, is to show everyone all the parts that are required for this crazy setup here. I don't know if you can see that, but over by my thumb here, it says S-Conv PCB. Each card reader needs one of these, and what you do is you take this connector, the JSTNH, connect it to this big connector here, and now these are both exactly the same, so it doesn't matter which connects to which S-Conv board, and I'll usually just put it down here on the bubble wrap because I don't want it to have any problems, because, you know, never fun to have any problems with electrostatic discharge when it comes to electronics. And then the same thing here, plug this one into the other S-Conv board. JSTNH will only snap in one way, so you don't have to worry about putting it the wrong way. Put that on the bubble wrap here. Now, we have these cables here, which this is the harness to go from the S-Conv board to the 256. You'll see there are two different connections on here. The first one we're going to worry about. Now, these are actually keyed. So one is one player, one is two player. The one I have in my hand right now, I believe, is player one. So what we do here with both of these is we connect this little cable here into the connection on the S-Conv board. And this is another one which only goes one way. You can see on this one side, let me see if I can get you a good image of this. There are these little raised portions, and you'll see in the actual plug in the S-Conv, there's actually things that they go into. So this will only fit like this. Now, from what I understand, if you had like a different, there's called a C-Conv board, which I have no idea what that does or what makes it different. This power connector, I think, does something, but for this, I've plugged it into either of these sockets, and it makes no difference, so I just leave them unplugged. Now, the same exact thing for the other connection, which is this cable here. See, so we have the same type of setup, so we just plug that into our other S-Conv board. Plug that right in. And then, of course, what I like to do here is get that nice down on the bubble wrap here. Take all the rest of this cabling, since unlike having an arcade cabinet, I don't need to have this whole thing like with the arcade PCB in the back and then the card readers in the front, so I don't need all this cable. I just kind of get it out of the way. So we're gonna go all the way back over to the 256 over here, and I'll show you how they interface with the X card board, which I showed you earlier. Now, the exact same thing here. We take this connection, and let me just make sure I'm in frame here. And that connects into these guys here. Now, you'll notice, let me get the two connections next to each other. One of them is bigger, one of them is smaller. So, there's no way to mess this up. The bigger one goes on the bottom. Wait, the other way. They only fit, once again, like everything, they only fit one way. And just like the controller port, it'll kind of snap. And then you do the same thing with the other one. And it just kind of snaps. And to get these out, there's just a little thing you push here, and then you just pull them right out. Very easy. Now, the last piece of this is that cable I was showing you earlier. See this one with these two little connections? Now these, which were at the same end as the data connection, are your power harnesses. Connect one of these each to each of these. And now, we have a fully connected Namco System 256 board, which is now ready to run Tekken 5. I'm getting ahead of myself here. Tekken 5 Dark Resurrection with our full card reader access. So I'm going to go ahead and face our camera to the TV and show you what this 15-minute video gets you here. So let's go ahead and go around here. Got to mind my tripod here. It kind of gets all in with the wires, and all I have to do now is turn on my power supply. And if you heard that beeping sound, that's the System 256 booting, checking the dongle properly. Now, on our 256, there's a little red light by where the power supply plugs in, and there's a flashing green light on the I'm on the X card board, indicating they're both working. So right now it's loading all the stuff for the game to boot. Takes about a minute or two here.
Good morning.
And if you heard that, that was good morning. And now, as you can see, on our screen here is... I'm going to turn the volume down because it's going to be awfully loud, awfully quick. You'll see on the screen here, you'll see card here and card there. And that indicates that our card readers are both online. I believe if you didn't have your card readers, they just wouldn't show up at all. And when you insert a card, as you saw in my video, in here, this one turns red. And I discovered just the other night, if you insert one into here, this one turns blue. And they both kind of do that, like, pulsing thing. But that's really all there is to connecting a Namco System 256 board with card readers. Because I just wanted to show you that because it's just one of those things. And now I've loaded into the test mode like you saw me have on the actual arcade video. And at this point, I can actually go through and here we are. I can actually just go through into my card options. Now you'll notice under sound test here, JVS status is grayed out. It's because that JAMA B board from Namco is not a JVS board, so it doesn't go into the little USB looking port, which is actually next to the audio ports. If I actually had my any of my Sega JVS boards powered up and running this on this system, I would then have that option. I could go in there and it would tell me all about the JVS board. But now what I can do, since the card readers are online, I can go into card options. It'll initialize the card system. And just as I showed you in the arcade video, I can take my trusty arcade card here. This is our Tekken card with Brian, Lei Wulong, Bruce, and Yoshimitsu on it. And just pop it into card reader number 1. And as you can see, it reads that the card's in there. And if you can see that happening, then you know that your card readers are both up and running. And what I can do here real quick, I'm just going to do this. Put card in card reader number 1. And put a card in card reader number 2. And as you can see, it can read both of them. It can check their serial numbers. And if I take controller number 2 here, I can do a read-write test on card reader number 2. And this, of course, is the square button. Read-write OK. Read-write OK. Reject card number 1 by pressing the triangle button, which is button 2 or right punch. Reject card number 2 by pressing triangle or right punch. As I had said in one of my other videos, unfortunately the solenoid on that one is at the moment having some problems. So what I have to do is I have to actually physically press it forward so I can actually get the card out. But as I had said, as you can see, that's all there is to plugging in and using a Namco System 256. There are other ways to do this. As I said, there is that CConv board that I was told about, but As I said, it basically does the same thing, it's just a different way of hooking it up. But if you have any questions about using the card system on Namco System 256 at all, keep in mind, I'm not an expert, and I only got this done because I got all of this stuff in one auction. Not the cards, I actually bought those separately. I found somebody on another website who sold me a bunch of these, and I was very happy. And as I'd mentioned in the arcade video, and I'm going to mention it again now, you know, this is a standard Tekken 5 data card, but it works perfectly on Tekken 5, Tekken 5.1, or Dark Resurrection, like I'm using it. But keep in mind, if you use a Tekken 5 card on any upgraded version, like if you take a Tekken 5 card, which you've already registered and started, use it on 5.1 or Dark Resurrection, it's going to upgrade the card, and then you cannot go back. So if I took this card that's now used in Dark Resurrection, I can't use this in Tekken 5, and I can't use this in Tekken 5.1. But if I use a card in Tekken 5, I can use it on 5.1 and Dark Resurrection, but it will upgrade it, and therefore it will not be able to go back to a previous version. Just keep that in mind if you have these arcade cards. Once they're used in the most upgraded version, you have to keep using it in that version. As far as I know. That's what I've been told by people online. But, as I said, that's how you hook up Namco System 256 with the card readers. It's really not too bad. It can be a little bit more complex than you would think, but yeah, it's pretty cool setup. Well, this has been another Game Nexus kind of arcade instructional video here. And actually, let me just make one more mention here. If you were using this on JAMA, you would take a cable going from your audio and put that into the audio connection, and then these connections here, like I showed in my Tekken 4 video, would be your kick harness. And your stereo audio, because that would go to a different pin on in your cabinet. This would be your stereo audio, the left connector, and then the right connector is your kick harness. Now with that, this has been another Game Nexus arcade instructional video, and I shall see you later. Bye.